Oh, hello everyone, and welcome to our August FEM session. Very aware that it's summer holidays, so no doubt everyone will be busy in and out of juggling work and childcare and various other things and holidays, hopefully, which would be nice for everyone. So we're going to record it. We're recording today so that we can listen back on playback, etc. And we've got the lovely Sam Gratton here to talk to us today about resilience building and some of the things that she's been through in her life and career, and how we can, hopefully learn from some of those things that she's put in place to help cope with some of the challenges. So thanks, Sam, for joining us today.
Thank you.
We decided to do it as a Q&A eventually, didn't we? So I know that some of the conversations we had around when we were starting to think about what you were going to talk about was, some of the sort of personal tragedies you've had in your life. And I know that you lost your father in a car crash, and I know you had like a really bad car accident as well. So can you share with us, some of those experiences and how they've shaped your understanding of resilience?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was a bit of a chain of unfortunate events, really. And we all hope it won't happen to us. But I guess looking back, well, first of all, I want to say when I was looking through the questions you sent me, I felt like an absolute fraud talking about this. I think that imposter syndrome kicks in, and you think, oh my gosh, why would anyone want to hear what I've got to say? But like Gretchen, thank you so much. This community is exactly what we need because all of us sharing these collective experiences will help support and elevate one another. You don't have to be an expert on a certain thing to be able to help somebody else kind of go through that themselves. So I think that was quite helpful for me to remember as well. Um, and then, so thinking back over like past experiences, what I think they've done in terms of understanding resilience is even before you get to that point, understanding how those lived experiences have shaped you. We are a product of our environment, and whatever we've been through and whatever, I don't want to just call it baggage, but those life experiences, baggage, whatever it is, they're going to impact how we react to certain events, the habits that we fall back on, some of which might be good, some of which might be bad. And I think by understanding why we react in a certain way or why we behave in a certain way, helps us to create coping mechanisms to understand, um, you know, everybody's different, but to understand what we can do to safeguard ourselves and to give us the best chance of success. Much in the same way we talk to clients and we analyze our clients' behaviors and things, we're no different. We're going to react in a different way to different situations out there. I think once we kind of have that self-awareness of ourselves and we can be kind to ourselves, then we can start to put some plans in place. Life will go on in different scenarios, difficult scenarios. Life will throw us curveballs. It's not going to stop for us while we kind of deal with them. So it's understanding that and then moving forwards. I've rabbited on there, but yeah, basically be kind to yourself, understand what it is that's created the person that we are today, and then use that to create some coping mechanisms.
And have, in the aftermath of some of those things that had happened to you, with your own car crash and the loss of your dad, did you come up with specific coping mechanisms you're able to look back on now, that helped you maintain like the balance that you needed to? Because those things are, I'm not sure, how poorly you were after your car accident, but clearly those things have an effect on like your professional, how you can work, how you can juggle that with things going on at home. So reflecting on it, were the things that you learned from those things that have helped now?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's come down. I mean, everybody's going to be slightly different, but there's some really core things that each of us can can do. And I think it's come down to three main things. The first one is finding my tribe. So making sure that I was surrounded by people, whether that be at work or outside of work, family and friends and things, who are your village, who are your support mechanism. So I was off work for 3 months. I was on bed rest in hospital for 2 weeks of that. And when I was discharged from hospital, I went and stayed with my father and, well, my parents in law. And I remember like my father in law like feasting me in the garden. I'd be walking around it as I was learning to walk again. And he'd be beasting me like not to limp, making sure I was like walking properly and things like that. And then like not to mention when I got back to the office, I've been out of the office for 3 months. Things progress, things change. You might be feeling a little that you're lacking in confidence and stuff. I had a work mum. So I had somebody at work who was there, that you were looking forward to going back and seeing, and she had your back and that sort of thing. So it's having those sorts of people around us. I think also drawing on their own experiences. When we start to talk to people, everyone's been through some sort of difficult situation of their own. And so to be able to talk to them about how they coped with it, but also see that they've come out of it the other side is really reassuring as well. The fact that my partner John does the same job as me, he's a financial planner. He's also a partner in a company, so he's super busy. But I know that he always understands what I'm going through. So to be able to talk to him is probably pretty beneficial. It's rubbish for our private life, though. I mean, we've got nothing to talk about other than work and our son. So we have to try really hard with that. But having your tribe, I'd say, secondly, being kind to yourself. Why do we put ourselves under so much pressure? And like, I've had amazing women work on my team before, who have been absolute perfectionists. And that's great as a manager because you're going to get top quality work out of them. But they're never going to be satisfied with what they're doing. So you've got to be really careful that you don't always aim for like unachievable levels with things. Be realistic. Um, you know, because at times we're going to make mistakes or life's going to become hard and something's going to happen, which means, we didn't quite achieve what we set out to do. So, yeah, be realistic. And when it doesn't quite go to plan, don't beat yourself up over it. I always joke that I live in rainbow and unicorn land. And I always worry that will get taken the wrong way. But what I mean by that, those are real symbols of happiness and magic and hope. And I think by trying to stay in that mindset, it's a very optimistic mindset. It's calm. I don't want big spikes in emotions and energy levels. By trying to live in that world, which I know it's not realistic all the time, but by at least trying, that's kind of like the goal. By trying to live in rainbow and unicorn land, it helps to give yourself from a place of security and comfort that in our jobs we are out there doing a responsible role, managing a lot of money for people, putting ourselves out there, um by coming from a place of stability, and happiness, rainbow and unicorn land, it kind of gives you a better chance of managing some of those things when life gets a bit stressful. But rainbow and unicorn land takes work. I mean, I know some of the questions will help us lead on to that, but it doesn't naturally happen that way. You're not naturally living in a place of peace. Life is so busy nowadays. We've got so many different balls to juggle that actually it takes a real conscious effort to stay in that zone. And sometimes we're pushed out of it, outside of our own control. But sometimes we can control where we are with that. So my son's teacher talks about what does she call it? Dropping anchor. I always say lowering your anchor. I think if you Google it, dropping your anchor. And that means like if you find yourself in an emotional storm, imagine that you're on a boat and you've lowered your anchor, dropped your anchor. And it just gives you time to hold steady until that storm passes. And then you can set sail again and continue on your journey. And doing that, dropping your anchor, it doesn't get rid of the storm, but it minimizes the damage that the storm can do and stops your boat from moving off course and traveling to an unplanned location. And she talks to, my son's teacher talks to Henry about doing that. And I absolutely love it because it just it allows you just to take a chance to acknowledge a really intense emotion. You know, if you're in a difficult place, you just acknowledge it. You know, you can't get rid of it, but just to take a breather and kind of just allow it just to happen. You know, don't do any knee jerk or stupid things at the time. You might have some holes to patch up on your boat. But, you know, just wait for it to pass. And I really love that. I share that with loads of people. I don't know how much it works for people, but I love it as an analogy, and Henry and I talk about it quite a lot. Um,
Yeah,
and I
there's some
think
really interesting things in there, Sam. I like the unicorn and rainbow land. I hadn't really thought about it like that. I feel like I've got my own kind of unicorn and rainbow land that I like to live in quite a lot of the time. But actually, the one thing that's like I like about the dropping anchor thing is I find that as I get older, my emotional spike at our time of month, like my week before that my period, I my quite a lot of decisions are badly made in that week. You know, I find everything like really overwhelming. The busyness that I can normally deal with like gets un, un, unmanageable. And so I'll just literally go like, can't do that anymore. All these things I volunteer for, can't do that anymore. The amount of things that I've just said, like, you know, and I used to really like make decisions in that week because I was like, I'd be overwhelmed. So I'd be like, nope, got to get rid of all this stuff. And then the rest of the 3 weeks, I can actually like cope with it pretty well. So I've had to realize, like, in that week that I have to go, it's kind of like the anchor thing. I have to go, you're not going to give up those things in that week because you know that that's because just like heightened emotions and stuff. I think that that's, you know, not necessarily about resilience, but I like the concept of like, you know, hang on, just, you know, it's not the end of, you know, the boat's not sinking. You've just got to do something about that period of time and, you know, get yourself back up to your, you know, rainbow happy land. So that really resonates. It really resonates with me. Thank you. I thought those were some quite nice little things to think about.
yeah, I think your self-awareness is so important because yeah, we're just so hard on ourselves. So that 1 week, you know that you can be a little bit kinder on yourself. Maybe don't make any major decisions during that week each month, but it's so important that you've recognized that, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's important to be aware of it and be kind to yourself and just kind of go, right, blah. Well, yeah, it feels a bit too much. And I could still make that decision. I could still go like, no, but I've had enough. I don't want to feel like this, you know, there's too much every month to kind of take on. But I think I do look back over the last year and there are some things where I've gone, no, and then I'm like, probably could have managed that, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah.
Yeah.
So talking a little bit about Henry then and stuff with family, but so in your role, what are some of the key strategies that you know you've built up and you could share around yeah facing unexpected setbacks? So we're talking really about resilience around things that not like me where it's a month and I feel you know slightly heightened emotion in that week, but things that hit you out the blue and how you're going to cope with that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think I touched upon it when I mentioned perfection. So I think it's accepting that at certain times, you know, it's okay just to get the day job done, you know, and to kind of ease off the pressure that we can so easily put on ourselves. But when I was kind of thinking about this in more detail, I think it comes down to, I mean, it's all absolutely around the mindset that we have. And I think it comes down, and probably most people are familiar with this, but having a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. And so if you're not familiar with it, what that means is that really with a growth mindset, you take those difficult emotions that you might experience, those emotions that make us feel uncomfortable, that we might shy away from, that we're a bit afraid of, and you flip them on their head and you turn them into a positive. Whereas a fixed mindset is going to get caught up in wanting to avoid those emotions or avoid those situations where they're going to make us feel those uncomfortable things. So, as a couple of examples here, so somebody with a fixed mindset, if they come across a challenge or something that's challenging, they might try and avoid it. They might not want to put themselves in a particular situation. They're afraid of looking stupid. They're afraid of putting themselves out there. Whereas for somebody with a growth mindset, I mean, Gretchen, you're a great example of this. That's somebody who sees those challenges as a way of improving and growing and building themselves. Um, Obstacles, so somebody that's coming up against an obstacle repeatedly, somebody with a fixed mindset might just say, I just can't do it, I'm not good enough, I'm not good at it, that's just the way it is, I can't do that sort of thing. So I think somebody that's maybe new to a financial planner role, and maybe coming across lots of new things, it can be quite overwhelming, and it can be quite easy to just kind of say, can't do it, I'm not good enough. Whereas somebody with a growth mindset, they're going to keep trying. They might kind of think some different angles, find out what works for them, and they'll keep having a go at things until they succeed. So there's loads of stuff online about this, but I think if you can get yourself in a place where you don't fear the unknown, you're not scared when things kind of take you off tangent and don't go quite how they were planned, and you can see the benefit to all of that in terms of your personal growth, um, being able to handle those scenarios when they crop up, learning from your experiences, good and bad, then I think that's really integral to peace of mind, resilience, everything that we're talking about.
I think it's
Oh, I was just going to say on that one though, I've also what's so important. We're not alone. Financial planners, we're in a whole range of communities. If you're coming up against something, talk to the people around you. There will be somebody else that has been through it before and can share their experience with you. I think a lot of the answers, a lot of the ways that I'm answering today are really from my own experience, but all I've done is pull on a whole range of other resource. We've got some fantastic communities, this community, next gen planners. There's lots out there where we can draw upon lots of shared experience.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I'd add the empowered group in a different way to here. I think that empowered group that's on Facebook, that people quite often post things. And I think it's a really great resource for like people go, this has gone wrong, or this is what I need to do, or this happened to me and I've felt really bad. And it's a great kind of buoying up of women in financial planning, financial services. It does a different type of role really to what we're trying to do here, because it's all kind of on Facebook and messaging and things. But I think it's a great, I watch it quite avidly, and I think it's quite an interesting group of different way of supporting people, which is great. Really interesting, as you were talking about that kind of growth mindset. One of my trainees, bless her, she's failed RO2 twice. She just really struggling with this RO2, and sorry, RO1 she's doing. She failed it twice, so it's her first kind of exam, and it's a real difficult one, because we all remember how boring it is to read, and but showing like resilience of just kind of coming in and going, right, I've cried for the day, but now I'm ready to kind of like move on. What else can I do? What other questions can I have? And to encourage that growth mindset when someone's a trainee, I think is absolutely vital, because it can quite easily go in the other direction. And so trying to see if there are other ways. And in her situation, I just think she didn't learn to study properly because she was a COVID exam child, and it's a real problem then when you're having to learn things off by heart for this examination technique that they insisted that we would go through. So that's just one thing that popped up as you were talking about that. Okay, so what about balancing work life, especially when we're going through tough times? And I think that you're pretty much, are you working full time now at Ellis Davis, or have you got a sort of
I
slightly
am. No,
position?
I'm full time, but one of the major benefits is that I've got a flexible working contract. So I'm really lucky. And it does mean that during times like now through the summer holidays, I can pick Henry up from holiday club. I can be there and spend, time with him. After that, I can start working early if I need to, or working late if I need to. So that in terms of juggling, that's okay. But when I saw this question, I mean, I felt this is where I felt like a massive fraud because I started my new role at Ellis Davies in March, but I left a job that I'd been at for nearly 14 years. That was all because John and I were under the same roof, and you can't do that for that long. Um, but so I'm in this place now of like massive change, which is really difficult. So I'm here talking about resilience and things like that. Actually, in terms of do I have a healthy work-life balance at the moment? If I'm honest, no, I don't. And we're not going to get it right all the time, but it's really important that we just don't let it pile on and you know uh, weigh us down. So I've got work to do right now. When I get anxious, stressed, or busy, I don't eat. That's not healthy for anybody. I'm very particular about the house. It's got to be tidy and clean. And at the moment, I'm finding that by the time I've juggled everything else, work and Henry, and got that bit sorted, it's 8:30, 9 o'clock before I've even sat down. I'm going to go exercising at 9 o'clock at night. So, that's gone out the window. But again, I think we just got to be kinder on ourselves. And, there's going to be peaks and troughs in our lives. Life's going to throw us more at certain points. And we just, in the words of Nemo, keep swimming, don't we? Um, in terms of things that when it's going well, what do I think has helped with things going well? And what do I need to change now to get me back in that position? I've always found that being really honest with my team um, is helpful. I think if everybody knows when somebody's kind of up against it or have got extra pressures, somebody at work at the moment is helping their mother-in-law complete attendance allowance forms and things like that. I mean, we all know how much time all of that can take. So I think it's having an awareness of what's going on in people's personal lives as well as what they're coping with at work. And then we can share that then and we can help support one another. Um, I do little things like I've got two mobile phones. I've got my work phone and my personal phone. And then when it's Henry time, work phone isn't with me. Clients know that they can call me and I'm going to check that periodically and check in and I'll get back to them. But I think not having my work emails there on my phone all of the time makes a massive difference. And that's something that I've always worked really hard to kind of stick to being able to switch off like that. Um, I think with my slightly controlling OCD nature, also I find it really beneficial to time block my diary and to control my diary. So I find it helpful to kind of put in all those important tasks, things like post meeting, work meeting, prep, but also other project work and stuff to actually allocate time for it in my diary rather than keeping lots of to-do lists. It just makes me feel like I've got better control over things. And, something will always crop up, which means you don't get to do something that was planned that day. But at least then I can move it. I've got kind of sight as to what I've got planned for a couple of weeks. And I think that makes it easier not to have to work at the weekends or, just by managing that time, making sure that you're getting to your priorities. It hopefully reduces the amount of time where I'm working, you know, 13-hour days, that sort of thing, just by making sure it's blocked out. And you do it at the time that it's blocked out. Don't procrastinate. Don't, disappear off and do something else or spend ages Googling something, try and stick to that time. Um, and I'd say enjoy the small things. I went to see a meeting on Friday with some solicitors. We were meeting at a pub. We sat outside. The sun was out. We sat outside. So I think just at any time when you can to make your day, whether that's your professional work day or outside of work day, that little bit nicer, to get a bit more vitamin D, whatever it might be, take all those opportunities that you can, just to it's just keeping the spirits up, isn't it? Life may be pressurized, but it's anything that you can do to keep your spirits up.
Fab. So my next question was about clients. So it was how do you use your personal experiences to support and advise your clients who might be facing their own financial and personal setbacks? I imagine that some of those things that we've just talked about, it's a similar vein, but maybe you've thought of something else as well.
No, no, it is. But like it always amazes me because like we are so lucky, aren't we, with the job that we do and the impact that we can have on clients. And I think when you're new to the role, that is just so overwhelming. And it's absolutely terrifying, isn't it? You're scared of what a client's going to ask you, you're scared of what you're going to say. They're asking you stuff that's really important. And we have a chance here to actually change lives and to, help the direction that somebody may go. So I always say that we are planning for the worst and hoping for the best. So if a client's going through a difficult time, I hope that because of the work we've done before that point, we've built a wonderful relationship. There's empathy and understanding there. We've got to the bottom of what it is they truly want to achieve in life. And then we've looked at worst case scenarios and we've put plan B, C, and D in place. I hope then that by the time, because it will happen to everybody, by the time they find themselves in a difficult situation, we've laid the foundations so that whilst we can't stop that whatever situation is from happening, we've at least given them the tools to they know that they've got support, they've got somebody there that they can turn to and talk to, a sounding board, non-judgmental support, but also that as far as their finances go, they're in a strong position that they can weather the storm. And I think empowering, through that relationship, we can really empower clients. We can help them become more independent with their finances. We can encourage them to do things that they wouldn't have otherwise done. It's like absolutely life changing. I pinch myself every day that this is what we do. So when I was thinking about this as well, I think also clients find it really helpful to hear about others like them. So I think if you're lucky enough that you've managed, a sizable client bank, you've probably come across a whole range of stories, a whole range of experiences. And so to be able to share some of those stories with your clients is really reassuring for them to know not only that you've helped somebody through that situation before, but just from a point of, okay, somebody else has been in a similar situation and they're now okay.
It's,
So
it's mad the amount of clients go to me. Well, what does everyone else do? Or have you had this with anyone else before? And it's like it again that can we're constantly comparing ourselves to others and what others do
yeah,
and I think there's a lot of damage that can be done in that. But I think there's also some reassurance. You can
yeah.
kind of pitch yourself like, where am I on this journey, where am I in my in this problem, or is there a way out of this, like where's the light, where am I kind of aiming towards, but yeah, it's mad, isn't it, how that comes up so often with clients, with
Or or
finding
how many
that reassurance piece of like, well, I've been through that with someone before and what they did was this, you could look at something like this.
Yeah, I think also how many times have you had a client who's apologized for what they're saying or what they're feeling or their behavior? If they're feeling uncertain about something and they're apologetic for it. And you say to them, actually, 90% of my clients have the same, feel the same thing or, have the same level of understanding as you. This is normal. And immediately it takes them out of that place of fear and just reduces those anxiety levels and makes them feel, yeah, that it's normal. Yeah, no, but the help that we can give there is really powerful.
So thinking back to what you said about, I know that the role you're in now, and moving to Ellis and Davis is a big change from where you've been, and with change comes a whole lot of feelings, and you've been honest about not really got the best kind of work life balance at the moment, and given that it's somewhere, I can understand that as well when you're trying to juggle a little bit different kind of childcare and stuff. But what's on your plan then? Like, what strategies have you got, like, to kind of think about that you're going to try and help make that a bit more comfortable for you and not so quite so stressful?
Yeah. I've I like to keep a business plan. I suspect you're a business owner, so you're absolutely the same. But I think even if you're not a business owner, and it might be that your employer encourages you to do it anyway, but I always like at the start of the year to kind of look back over the past year, to see what's gone well, maybe what didn't go quite so well, and to set some new goals for the year. And I think when times get a little bit difficult or you're going through some change, that can be a really good time to revisit that business plan and remind yourself of the path that you're on. And make sure that you're moving in the right direction. So that's what I've been doing at the moment. There's lots of new activity being happening. So there's lots of really positive stuff. And I think we just have to remind ourselves of that. It's not always measurable in the most obvious ways, but you've just got to remind yourself that what you are doing is taking you in the right direction. So I think maintaining that growth mindset, thinking what's the worst that can happen and giving stuff a go. Um, you know, Change and fear of change or whatever, it's just part of the journey, but we mustn't, hide away from it or run away from it. So keeping that optimism and that positive outlook, rainbow and unicorn land, making sure that you stay in that place and don't move to a place of fear. Um, I've printed out here. Don't know if you can read that. That's one of your blogs.
Yeah,
The
that's my elevating your profile blog. Yeah.
Yeah. When I saw you for networking a couple of weeks ago, I said that I have actually printed that out and been using that as a checklist. So I think the reason I wanted to mention that now is that, when we are struggling, we can very easily revert to bad habits, hide away, and it's difficult then to have the confidence to kind of keep pushing yourself forward and things like that when life is hard. We spoke about lowering your anchor. So I think, there is a case for just giving yourself a moment to wait for the storm to pass. But things like this, elevating your profile, having the confidence to push yourself out there, every time you encounter a difficult situation, like me talking here, this is the first time I've done this, but the next time I'm in this sort of scenario, it'll be a little bit easier again. So, yeah, to anybody listening to this today who's a little bit fearful maybe about pushing themselves out there, I would have a read of your blog, The Importance of Elevating Your Profile, because there's some
Very
really
kind of you, Sam, to like, you know,
uh,
fly my flag. Yes.
yeah.
There's
Yeah.
one thing that also has come up a couple of times, and it came up, you said something earlier and it triggered it in my brain, and then you've said something again, and I think it's important that I say it. The business plan, it's the wrong word for it really, because not everyone's going to have a business, we're not all going to have a business plan, but to have a plan for our kind of next steps and stuff every year, I think is absolutely vital. But something that's come up a lot when I've done some business coaching before, and it comes down to this perfectionism thing that we all fall, many of us fall foul of, is that some of those goals that you'll set that might be shorter-term goals, they should be at least 90% achievable. And then the ones that you've put, on 80 to 90% achievable. And if you get them, that's brilliant. But just to give yourself, that kind of like, hang on, they want to be stretchy goals, right? Because there's no point if they're just goals that you can just do. So you've got to have that kind of band. But then kind of your longer term ones, because if you're writing a business plan, you'd have like 3 to 5 years, and then you might have, not details, but like bigger picture things that you've got to think about. And that's something that I certainly went through but then some of those will be even, the likelihood of you hitting them are going to be even less than that. They might only be like 50%, but they're written down because it's important to write them down. And I think if we think about that from a personal growth perspective as well as business, depending on how you want to apply it, if you're a business owner or if you're working in a business, if you're thinking about that, I think, yeah, giving ourselves that little freedom of kind of going, do you know what, actually, all the guidance says that even if I write this down, if I don't make it, it's okay. But it's written down and I'm aiming towards it, because if I can get to it, that's brilliant. Because we've got to make them stretchy. There's no point in just writing down things that you've already achieved or
No.
you're only 5% away from. You've got to be making it a bit more stretchy than that. So that's just something that's came up earlier when you mentioned perfectionism, because it's something I try to remember, because it is a sense of imposter syndrome that I regularly do. Like I'm pretty confident. I don't tend to think that I suffer from imposter syndrome anymore that much. But one of the things I do is say, oh, I could have done that better. You know, well, yeah, it wasn't quite right, was it? Or and that is with everything, with like with business, with crafting, with making ceramics, whatever. I'll always be like, oh, but the ear's a bit big. Do you know what I mean? The ear's a bit big, and it could be better next time. And you're like, that is some imposter syndrome that kind of repeats itself for me. And I think that allowing ourselves just to go thanks, or yeah, I'm really pleased with it, rather than
Yeah.
going, criticizing yourself is really important.
It's a real balance, isn't it, between wanting that personal development and that continual improvement at the same time, acknowledging when something is okay and is good.
Yeah.
So yes, its ears might be a little big, but don't be too critical on yourself, because you've also made a really awesome piece of art there. So yeah, it's a tough one. But I think whatever it is, whatever it is, whether you're making something, it's just having that motivation and knowing what it is that you're trying to achieve, so that when you're going through the hardships, it's going to motivate you to keep going towards that end goal, isn't it? And then yeah, don't be too hard on yourself when it's not quite perfect along the way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And well, we had a few more questions, but I think they're kind of just probably going over what we've talked about. So instead of me asking them, is there anything else that you thought about in preparation that you really want to share with everyone before we finish?
No, I think we've probably covered everything off. I think that growth mindset thing is just, if we can get ourselves into that space, then we're good to go. Um, yeah, it's just, yeah, you're not alone. Like, life will get hard. Turn on the people around, turn on, turn to the people around you. Which is why we're in communities like this, isn't it? So yeah, thanks.
And definitely, and building that network is absolutely vital. It's so ingrained in me now that I've kind of forgotten what it's like when you don't have that network. So I think that's quite, important when we're thinking about spreading messages of support and community, is that yeah, for me now it just feels quite natural, but and it isn't to everybody. So yeah, I think the message of just reaching out and talking to people, and if there's anyone listening and they feel like that they need to share, certainly part of this process is that there'll always be someone that you're able to talk to kind of share experiences, or we might be able to help with an issue. So reach out to me if you need that. But yeah, so thank you, Sam. It was great, and thank you for everyone who came along. I know it's summer, and I know that we're all juggling multiple things. So I don't know if any, just let me know if anyone's got any questions before I shut it down. Anyone wants to talk to Sam, you just raise a hand. That's fine. All right. So I don't know. I keep seeing Michelle flash on and off, but I think she's got her phone. So when your phone's ringing and then it's
Yeah.
taking stuff. So, but thank you everyone for joining us, and we'll make sure the repeats back for everyone who hasn't been able to join us live. So thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good day.